The arena lights dimmed to a single spotlight, and 3,000 students went silent as instructor Drazen stared down at the human boy lying motionless in the dust. "Get up," Drazen said, his voice carrying across the Colosseum without amplification. "Get up, human, or admit what everyone here has known since orientation. You don't belong at Predator Academy." The boy, Ethan Cole, 17 years old, ranked dead last in a class of 400, didn't move. Blood traced a line from his lip into the sand. Above him, the Veltharan champion who'd put him there, a 7-foot horned predator named Ssarik Voth, flexed his claws and grinned at the cheering crowd. Then Ethan's hand closed around a fistful of sand. Nobody in the arena, not the instructors, not the ranked students, not even Ssarik himself, understood what they were watching until it was already too late. 4 months earlier, none of them had even known his name. Predator Academy accepted exactly one student from every sentient species discovered by the Kael'thi Ascendancy, a governing body of 17 apex civilizations that had spent 3,000 years testing which young warriors, scholars, and hunters deserved to shape the galaxy's future. It was the most prestigious institution in known space. It had also never once admitted a human. That changed when the Ascendancy's outreach fleet discovered Earth and, out of diplomatic obligation more than genuine expectation, extended a single academy seat to humanity as a formality. Certain the offer would be declined, or worse, embarrassingly failed. Ethan Cole was not the strongest applicant humanity produced. He wasn't even close. He'd never won a fight in his life, had asthma he'd hidden from the selection committee, and had been picked, quietly, specifically because he'd asked the right question during his interview. What happens to the students who fail? No human official had ever asked that before. It made the committee reconsider what kind of person they actually needed to send. He arrived at Predator Academy carrying one bag and no expectations. Within a week, the entire student body had ranked him dead last, a designation Predator Academy displayed publicly, cruelly, on a massive holographic leaderboard visible from every dormitory window. But rankings on that board had a way of lying about who was actually dangerous. The Academy's structure was simple and brutal. Every species had strengths their homeworlds had bred into them over millennia. The insectoid Chironai possessed reflexes 3 times faster than any other known species. The Veltharan grew claws capable of shredding starship hull plating. The aquatic Doshani could survive vacuum exposure for minutes at a time. Humans possessed none of these advantages. Instructors openly speculated Ethan had been sent as a diplomatic joke. His roommate, a Chironai student named Kessuvar, made no attempt to hide his disappointment. "You should not be here," Tessik said within their first hour together, mandibles clicking with something close to genuine pity. "The Academy does not forgive weakness. It only postpones the moment weakness is exposed." "Maybe," Ethan said, unpacking his bag without looking up. "Or maybe everyone here's been taught to confuse strength with the only kind of strength they've ever seen." Tessik had no response to that. It was the first time in 4 years at the Academy anyone had said something to him he genuinely didn't understand. Ethan lost every physical evaluation that first month. Every single one. He was slower than the Chironai, weaker than the Veltharan, less durable than nearly every species on the roster. The leaderboard confirmed what everyone already believed. Rank 400, dead last. The human experiment already a failure. What the leaderboard didn't measure was what Ethan did after each loss. Sitting alone in the Academy's tactical archive until midnight, studying 3,000 years of recorded combat footage from every species that had ever walked the arena floor, he wasn't there to win fights. He was there to understand exactly why he kept losing them. The first real crack in the Academy's assumptions came during the Trials of Endurance, a month-long survival exercise on the moon of Kessuvar Minor, a barren world of collapsing ice caverns and toxic storm cycles that had killed 6 students in the exercise's recorded history. Ethan was paired, by administrative accident, with Ssarik Voth, the arena's reigning champion, a Veltharan whose brute strength had never once been tested against real desperation. 3 days into the trial, a storm collapse trapped them both in a cavern network with dwindling oxygen and no rescue signal reaching the surface. Sarik's strength meant nothing against a mountain of ice. His claws couldn't tunnel fast enough. His species' instincts, honed for direct confrontation, offered no answers for patient, methodical survival. Ethan's did. He mapped airflow patterns by candlelight from a cracked thermal cell. He rationed their oxygen using math Ssarik didn't understand and initially refused to trust. He kept the Veltharan champion talking through the worst of his panic. not through strength, but through steady, deliberate calm that Ssarik had never encountered in 17 years of training for combat. "Why do you do this?" Ssarik demanded on the fourth day, exhausted, humbled, watching Ethan calculate their remaining air by hand. "Why do you not simply fight the ice like a warrior should?" "Because the ice doesn't care how hard I hit it," Ethan said. "It only cares whether I understand it better than it understands me." They surfaced 6 hours later, alive, into a rescue party that had already begun drafting condolence reports. Nobody at the academy expected the rescue to be the beginning of something far more dangerous than a survival exercise. Word of the rescue spread through the academy within a day, but the leaderboard didn't change. Survival wasn't combat. Instructor Drazen Cole, a war veteran of the Kealthi Ascendancy's border conflicts and the arena's presiding authority, made that distinction publicly, dismissively, in front of the entire student body. "Cleverness in a cave is not strength in an arena," Drazen announced. "The human has proven he can survive. He has not proven he belongs. It was, deliberately, a challenge." Drazen scheduled Ethan's next arena match against Ssarik Voth himself, the champion who'd nearly died beside him, now expected to prove the rescue had been an aberration rather than evidence of anything real. Ssarik requested a private audience with Drazen the night before the match. "I do not wish to fight him," he said. "He kept me alive when my own strength meant nothing." "Then you understand nothing about what this academy tests," Drazen replied coldly. "Strength that cannot be proven in front of others is a rumor, not a fact. Fight him, or forfeit your rank." Ssarik didn't yet know that Drazen had a reason of his own for forcing this match, one that had nothing to do with testing either student. The match began exactly as everyone expected. Ssarik, torn between guilt and obligation, held back, and Ethan, refusing pity, pressed the attack anyway, forcing a real contest neither of them wanted. Ethan lasted longer than anyone predicted, using the tactical patterns he'd studied for months, reading Sarik's movements before they happened. But patterns weren't strength. Eventually, inevitably, Sarik's raw power broke through, and Ethan hit the sand. The crowd's cheering had already started to fade into disappointed silence, until Drazen demanded Ethan get up, and Ethan's hand closed around a fistful of sand. He wasn't reaching for a weapon. He threw the sand directly into the overhead spotlight's sensor array. The same sensor array Ethan had spent 3 nights studying in the tactical archive. The one that fed live footage not just to the crowd, but to a private observation feed reserved for academy leadership. The arena's lights flickered. And on that feed, for exactly 4 seconds, uninterrupted footage captured something Ethan had noticed weeks earlier and told no one. Instructor Drazen Cole, off to the side of the arena, adjusting a hidden device wired directly into the environmental controls. The same controls that had triggered the ice collapse that nearly killed both students on Kessuvar Minor. It hadn't been an accident, and Ethan had just proven it, in front of the entire academy, without throwing a single punch. The revelation detonated through the Colosseum faster than any fight could. Drazen Cole, decorated war veteran, had sabotaged the survival trial, not to kill the students outright, but to eliminate the human quietly, in an accident no one would question, before his presence could embarrass an academy built on rankings. Drazen had spent his career defending. Sarik's survival had been collateral Drazen hadn't planned for. Ethan's survival had been the failure Drazen couldn't forgive. Security seized Drazen before he reached the exit tunnels. In the chaos, Ssarik pulled Ethan to his feet, the boy still bleeding, still ranked dead last on a leaderboard that suddenly meant nothing at all. "You knew," Ssarik said, stunned. "Weeks ago. You knew, and you said nothing." "I wasn't sure," Ethan admitted. "I needed proof everyone could see. Not just a theory nobody would believe from the weakest student in the academy." That was the moment 3,000 students finally understood what the leaderboard had never measured. The Kealthi Ascendancy convened a formal inquiry within the week. Drazen Cole's fall from decorated instructor to disgraced saboteur became the most significant scandal in the academy's 3,000-year history, and Ethan Cole's quiet, patient unraveling of it became the reason the academy rewrote its evaluation standards entirely, adding categories no leaderboard had ever tracked: judgment, patience, and the discipline to gather proof instead of seeking vengeance. Ethan never rose to rank 1. He didn't need to. When the new leaderboard launched months later, it carried a category beside every student's name that hadn't existed before: trust earned. Ethan's was the highest score in academy history. Ssarik Voth stood beside him at the unveiling, no longer a rival, but something the Veltheron had never expected to call a human. A friend whose strength had saved his life twice, once in the ice, and once in front of everyone who'd ever doubted him. They said you were the weakest student here, Ssarik said quietly. Ethan looked up at the new leaderboard, at his name finally meaning something none of them had thought to measure. They were right, he said. They just never asked what I was strong enough to see.